If you could describe the season finale of Game of Thrones in one word, how would you describe it?
Disappointing.
So Game of Thrones just ended, and if we're being honest, it kind of sucked.
On our heroes burning their dead, and for some reason there's only like a quarter here of what was surely left behind by the end of the battle, but fuck it, who wants continuity? It's clearly the big gay. Also, all of the people who were surely dead in the previous episode are fine now, other than some cuts and bruises. Lucky for them, the undead couldn't pierce that heavy plot armor. Jon then commits to a speech that covers the immense sacrifice that was made from many characters, people that chose to ignore their differences, to put aside their desires for power and fight the definitive enemy of life itself with each other. The episode then devolves into characters that do choose to focus on their differences, putting forward their desires for power and fighting the more apparent enemy of life, each other. As connective...
I think probably the funniest one he has is episode 5. But analytically, episode 3 is kind of one of his strongest ones. This one's a kind of a drop in value. It's still very valuable, but I do find the opening parts kind of problematic. So we're going to hear him go into, for lack of a better term, the sexual histories of Brienne and Dany and try to make some comedic gold from it.
Of that, you literally used that information to save his life like 2 days ago, and now it's, what, embarrassing? And outside of all that specific context, isn't it a point of pride for a woman to have her virginity in these eras? Like, I'm pretty sure an unmarried, high-born virgin lady is of an extremely high demand, but nah, lol. She hasn't had sex yet, what a nerd. So we move over to more awkward dialogue being shared between Jon the Kneeler and Dany the Time Bomb. Naturally, since Jorah died to save her life, they decide to discuss him briefly.
He loved me, and I couldn't love him back. Not the way he wanted. Not the way I love you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for remembering that Jorah Mormont sacrificed 8 years of his life for your dumbass. He defended you at your lowest. He stayed with you until what was essentially complete dehydration. He prevented your assassination. He organized and fought in a rescue mission twice because you can't seem to park a fucking dragon properly. He made incredible use of the legendary pocket sand maneuver. He survived the finale of the fighting pits. He searched far and wide for a cure to the stone skin disease. All the while, it was to simply protect you. And so, what's the first thing you want to talk about when bringing up how he fucking died for you?
I couldn't love him back. Not the way he wanted. Not the way I love you.
Oh, you're such a twat. So Jon decides that he has to tell his family who he truly is, out of a sense of honesty, I guess. Even though he is keenly aware that Ned Stark, the most honorable man in the fucking solar system, kept the secret for like 20 years in order to protect people. He argues that with this truth, Sansa won't want Daenerys gone, so it's fine. Even though those two fucking hate each other right now and all they do is bicker over power. Meaning this would give Sansa the ammo she needs to challenge Daenerys. Look, there is no benefit to telling anyone about this unless you want to take the throne. Jon, you aren't making any sense at all. Someone is clearly making you...
Alright, well, with Brienne, I think we're just going to have a difference of opinion. Basically, he's appealing to, I guess, a kind of mythical medieval history where, for whatever reason, he thinks virginity had a lot of power or social significance. But he doesn't specify. Does he mean the 1400s, the 1300s, the 1600s, 1200s? Which region? Does it mean French medieval history, English medieval history, so on and so forth? So it just feels a little weird and ambiguous. This feels more like a Shadversity thing. Maybe he had traded notes with Shad and saying, well, what's a weak point? Oh, bring that up. Bring up the medieval sexual morality. And it's like, okay, I'm going to bring that up. But I don't think there's much of a dog here. I thought it was pretty well implied in the early seasons. She knows that Renly is homosexual. So why they suddenly turned her into like a novice with sexuality here is pretty bizarre. There's no explanation, but I don't think she's that naive. You know, again, typical bad writing, but not the worst one this season. But now let's jump to Daenerys and the Targaryen issue. I myself am confused, but not by D&D, because he's sort of bringing up an issue saying, well, you don't want to be honest to this degree because that's going to cause a political crisis, and then he brings up Ned. But that's not good, because the very clip he's citing, Ned tells Jon, when they speak next, they're going to have a conversation, which I thought implied he is going to tell the truth. Even if it might cause a war, he is going to tell Jon the truth about his origins, no matter the consequences. So I'm not clear why he's citing the Ned part. Yes, Ned cares about his honor so much, and he kept the secret for decades, but it's still hurting him to tell the lies. So I do think they established Ned would eventually tell the truth. I think that's keeping within character. As far as Jon, Now, I think this is the problem with his larger reviews, is he's got to specify better which season is really the worst or the most troublesome. Because in season 7, it's established Jon is willing to, again, make a really bizarre decision based on honesty, right? They have that big powwow with the dragons and Cersei, and he says, we have to tell the truth or words won't matter. Okay, doesn't make any sense, but that's his stance. And Tyrion has to have that tense meeting with Cersei to, say, okay, well, you should have lied, but I'm going to try to patch things over. So they do establish that Jon has this kind of weird honesty in season 7. Now you could say that was bad writing too, so be it, but they do lay that down as a kind of basal thing with him, that he is concerned with the truth. So now to complain, saying, Jon, why are you telling the truth? He's been doing that for a while, so it's not a real character assassination to just do that. But I think the more deeper issue with me and him is that Mauler seems to think this Targaryen thing even matters. I'm like, why would it matter? I mean, to me, that's the more puzzling thing about season 8, that his Targaryen background is kind of relevant. It might be relevant if they had the prophecy, right? Remember the Quaithe prophecy? It might be relevant there, but the Targaryens don't have a right or a legitimate claim to the throne. Their claim to the throne was conquest. The reason Egg had the throne is because he had the dragons. He never had a legitimate claim to the throne, he just took it. Thereby, if you say, this male person is a Targaryen, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything at all. It's his power, right? And in this reality, Dany has the dragons, so she's the Targaryen that counts. It doesn't matter that there's a male Targaryen. I know they set up that, well, the houses would side with Jon. Why would they? I mean, they know the experience with the Targaryens. The Targaryens conquer everything, so if they side with Jon, what's going to stop him from conquering them all over again? So we're stuck with, there's no claim to the Targaryens in terms of a legal title. It's just the dragons. And she controls the dragons. And they've established he's pretty differential to her, right? The McQueen problem. So him being a Targaryen is not going to do anything. And worst comes to worst, he could just abdicate the whole thing, right? He could just go up north and just not care about the title anymore. Technically speaking, he could just give up his claim to the throne entirely. So in terms of a political crisis, I guess the political crisis would be between her and Sansa, though that's kind of just made up out of nowhere. Lindsay does a really good job deconstructing that, saying the whole Sansa-Dany rivalry doesn't make sense either. But I think he's just barking up the wrong tree in terms of Jon's honesty. I think that's actually one of the good qualities he has throughout the whole seasons, but it's not being mixed well with his other qualities. At least that's my opinion. All right, we're going to continue mauling through the different episodes. This has been a review of Mauler's take on Episode 4 in Game of Thrones Season 8. Thank you for listening.